Welcome again to another informal discussion on building a more inclusive digital and analog world, where we'll learn about what's on the minds of experienced practitioners in the tech for social impact space. Today, I'm really happy to be speaking with Oliver Gilbert. Oliver is an entrepreneur focused on building last-mile distribution and financial services ventures, creating sustainable impact in emerging markets. Oliver, what's one big thing on your mind right now that you think we need to be paying more attention to in this space?
Hey, Josh. Thanks for having me on. So something that's been on my mind lately is how do you use digital tools to improve the livelihoods of SMEs in emerging markets, and in doing so, also increase the livelihoods of local communities that they serve?
Great. And for anyone who's not in the world of acronyms, so SME, small medium enterprises, just to put that out for any of those who are not aware. So awesome. Yeah, I mean, I think this is a really important topic, and particularly now, a lot of smaller businesses have been particularly hard hit with the current situation with the pandemic. What are some of the things that you're seeing in terms of where digital tools are really helping to provide them with increased access to whether it be economic resources, opportunities, or what have you?
Yeah, for sure. So no shortage of different areas, but three big pillars that I've been focusing on a lot are, primarily on the supply chain side. So, how do stores access products? Then secondly, on the financing side of, how do they run their businesses? And then third, kind of more on the holistic community impact about, how does using new tools actually unlock new opportunities for these stores or these communities that otherwise couldn't have it.
Mm.
And I'll give you a little bit of context. So out here in Asia, I'm calling from Bangkok today. Out here in Asia, there's about 17 to 20 million small mom and pop stores selling fast moving consumer goods alone. There's a lot more selling, auto parts and small things here and there, different types of business, but just within kind of the fast moving consumer goods space or consumer packaged good space. There's about that many stores. So it's a huge kind of user base.
Mm.
And these stores also create about $250 billion of sales each year. So, they look like it's a really small mom and pop store. They're nothing compared to a supermarket, but they're
Yeah.
actually the majority of a lot of the sales that occur in this region of this type of product. And therefore, too, it's a huge segment for any type of intervention to focus on. And in doing so, kind of starting with that first pillar on the supply chain side, a lot of people over the past 3 years, 5 years, have been focusing on introducing new e-commerce tools.
Mm.
So helping stores to access products more effectively than before. Traditionally in the past, how it normally works is a store is, on the edge of a street. You have a distributor come to that store, try to sell some products. The store needs to pay cash on delivery. They take the products. They need to try to sell it out over the next week or 2 weeks.
Yeah.
And one big new theme that I'm seeing is that there's a lot of new startups, a lot of big tech companies alike, trying to digitize these stores because they're purchasing so much, and so much of their own store operations can be improved if you're streamlining that ordering and just-in-time inventory type process.
Mm.
And that's across the region too. It's not specific to just one country or kind of one interesting pocket, but there's definitely a unique moment in time where now all of these stores now have smartphones, now have the connectivity to enable this type of transformation. So that's kind of one big piece.
Yeah.
Quite
And
exciting.
and are you seeing a lot of that push coming from at the brand or distributor level, or from, or independent standalone e-commerce platforms? So the Amazons of the world, or is it more on the distributor brand side that's really driving a lot of this?
Definitely a mix. A lot of the brands recognize that um, using digital tools will help them connect directly with these stores
Mm.
and will also help them grow their reach, both in terms of the number of stores that they add to the map and in terms of the volume that's pushed to these stores on a regular basis. So they definitely recognize the value of these platforms, but a lot of the brands can't do it themselves. You know,
Yeah.
like you don't want to have 20 different ordering apps per store. You kind of want that Amazon type
Yeah.
approach, or maybe a small, you know, 2 or 3 different types of Amazons kind of all competing in the marketplace. But you know, the market becomes less compelling if you have a million different, fragmented platforms.
Yeah.
So from that purpose, then you're definitely seeing a lot of tech companies and either VC funded or the huge tech companies moving in and trying to, build relationships with these stores to be that leading player in the market.
Mm. And are you seeing, in terms of where you're seeing more movement, are you seeing it more on the B2B side? So from, the brand distributors down to the shops, or from the shops to customers? And particularly now, I know a lot of small business mom and pop shops, they're mostly dealing with foot traffic probably. But have you seen a shift particularly in during the COVID era for how they're using digital tools to engage with customers?
Yeah, that's a really good question. Short answer is yes. A lot of the work that I've seen over the past couple of years is focused on kind of the B2B, where the brands or the distributors are getting products to the shops more quickly or affordably or
Yeah.
anything like that. More recently, there's also kind of an emergence of B2B2C, which could allow a consumer to place an order from their phone that allows them to pick it up at a local store. And
Mm.
when the consumer orders that product, they can then turn around, or the store can turn around and order that product from the distributor or supplier so
Okay.
that they have the product ready when the consumer wants it. And it allows the commerce and the transaction to occur, but allows it to happen in a way that provides the store a larger selection of products on a
Mm.
just-in-time basis to serve those customers. And that's especially good for products that maybe you don't need to buy every single day. So like
Yeah.
maybe if I wanted to buy a certain type of a smartphone, maybe the local store doesn't carry that smartphone always, but could
Mm.
very easily get it if I wanted it. As compared to like soap, where you're probably going to have someone buying a bar of soap almost every day. So
Yeah.
different types of products, different types of use cases. And then I'd say in COVID, you're definitely getting more anecdotal and kind of company pivots where a lot of these stores are now offering the ability to get groceries at their store and local deliveries of groceries, and taking either their old operations and kind of adding this grocery and daily goods provision to it to help them capture more of that stay at home demand.
Mm. And as you're seeing, you know, small shops, storefronts, digitizing both sort of more of that supply chain, and then also a little bit or increasingly sales to the customer. Where you mentioned the second pillar in terms of financial services. So how are you seeing that materialize in terms of ability for these shops, these store owners to be able to leverage that or take advantage, use that in ways that expand or extend financial services in ways that historically they might not have had access.
Yeah, so a lot of this ordering process naturally tees up a lot of the minimum requirements for a financial services offering.
Mm.
In that a lot of these stores, they might have bank accounts, they might have mobile money accounts, but they often lack access and kind of abundance of credit.
Yeah.
That's often because they're a really, really small business, maybe, you know, 5 or less employees type of small business. Um, they don't necessarily keep real time records, maybe paper records, maybe receipts every once in a while. Um, And then when it comes time to ask for a loan from a formal bank, they might not necessarily have all the documents pulled together and in a fashion that, an urban medium-sized business would have as standard.
Yeah.
So as a result, they have to turn to either more expensive lending options or kind of private money options, or they have to turn to microfinance options, which can be available, but maybe more expensive.
Yeah.
However, if you have every transaction digitized from the start, then you kind of have passively created that ability to create a credit score for that store and to help that store directly link to a bank or to lend directly to that bank. So the two activities kind of blend together very nicely, and then a lot of different folks take different approaches to that lending activity, but some do it in-house, some do it with partners, but at the end of the day, it's definitely still a holy grail that a lot of companies are looking at.
Yeah. And are you also seeing, suppliers and distributors taking advantage of increased, or I know historically, of course, they know who they're selling to and in what volumes, but having that in ways that are more real time, more accurate, potentially, taking advantage of predictive tools to, sort of identify what volumes may be needed at different stores. Are they, in any ways, is that helping with, their ability to offer stock credit or anything like that? Are you seeing any innovations in that front?
Yeah, so people are trying. Most distributors won't typically offer credit terms to local shops.
Mm.
They might offer it if you go way back with the person and you know them very well. But if you're getting a brand new order in and requesting 30-day terms, that's usually quite unlikely to be granted.
Yeah.
A lot of these small stores need to pay cash on delivery.
Mm.
Often recognize that stores that can buy on credit will buy more. So it's in the distributor or supplier's interest to have stores get credit, but they just don't want to do it themselves.
Yeah.
So everyone's interests are aligned, but it's just that it's hard to kind of wrangle up all these cats and get them lined up in a way that helps the entire ecosystem. So again, it's one of those reasons why having digital tools that can sit across these different partners can kind of serve as that broker of these better ways of working. So yeah, a lot of people are working on that. And then as you get into that, then you get into more of the traditional supply chain financing, where if a distributor knows what they're selling, then they can go turn around to their suppliers and try to get their products on better terms and better timelines and things like that. So it feeds up into not just at the store.
Awesome. So let's go from that direction the other way. You mentioned the third thing that you've really been focusing on is not only the benefits that digital tools and access to digital technology can have on the shop itself, but also within the broader community. And I'd love to hear some more about some of the ways that you're seeing this, because I think for for some people in the social impact space that are focused at the community level as in a sort of broader sense, not just at a business level, this is the sort of stuff that is interesting for them to hear.
Yeah, for sure. So in the course of digitizing a lot of these stores and the processes for the stores, you can use that as a new channel to introduce new services that the community otherwise couldn't have. If you look around at the companies that are present in, most of the stores in Asia, whether it's in really dense urban areas or really, spread apart rural areas, there's a certain small group of companies like Unilever, like Coca-Cola, like Pepsi, which have coverage everywhere.
Yeah.
That's often because they have products that are at an affordable price point and they have enough demand that they've kind of achieved breakout velocity where they can actually offer all of these stores cost effective, or offer products to all these stores cost effectively. Because like when you look at the unit economics of their business models, they need to factor the distribution cost into their products. So for example, even if a store wants to buy a bar of soap, if it costs you $1 to get that soap to the store, but they only buy 50 cents worth of soap, then you'll never include them in your offering base because they just don't buy enough to cover the costs. But if you were to flip that around and now offer these stores a lot of different products, you can kind of split that delivery cost across all the different brands and now make it more available for more brands to come in. So that's great if you're a fast-moving consumer goods company and allows you to sell more soap, sell more soda, stuff like that.
Yeah.
For me, really exciting for a lot of the nutritious companies who previously didn't have, good distribution access or good distribution economics to these markets. Because, for me, I believe that a lot of consumers would want healthy, sustainable options. It's not that consumers in these markets hate organic and sustainable products. It's that they don't have access to it. So if we can reduce the costs to getting those products to market, then that unlocks a huge, vertical of new sales. But it also then enables you to create new categories. So for example, I've worked a lot in clean cook stoves and solar lanterns in the past. Notoriously difficult to sell because you buy them like once every 5 years, once every 10 years.
Yeah.
The distribution costs very high. But if you have an always on channel, then it allows you to get that, heavier good, more expensive good to people just when they need it, and helps to, spread the reach of these products. And I'm sure it's not limited to just fast moving consumer goods or durables like this, but just anything that could have an impact on people's lives could now have a channel to get into people's hands.
And so who generally is managing those channels? Are we talking e-commerce companies in some markets, or is it sort of larger aggregate distributors, or what does that composition look like?
Yeah, so at the moment, the landscape is very fragmented. So this is like a traditional type brief where you have very offline traditional businesses serving other traditional businesses and needs kind of a small number of centralized stakeholders to aggregate that work. So a lot of the big e-commerce companies are trying to play that role, but there's so many stores that there's space for more than just one Amazon, I believe. And especially if you were to segment these type of stores into different types of groups. So for example, pharmacies have different needs than auto parts stores. So maybe that means that there's a different type of e-commerce platform serving each of them rather than just Amazon. So there's a lot of greenfield for the players that can serve these needs. But yeah, mostly I think the solution will be having a little bit more consolidation without it being one single player.
Yeah. Right. Well, somehow the time is going faster than it normally feels like it flies, and we like to keep these, pretty short. So if I can ask you just one last question, Oliver, which is, so if you had practitioners who are working in this space with an interest in, either SME development, or even at the rural community development, do you have any suggestions of, one or two things that they can do today to be sort of more prepared to take advantage of some of the benefits that you're seeing in this space?
Yeah, so there's no shortage of interest in this space. There's no shortage of people looking to create impact in this space. The one thing that I found really helps a lot of practitioners is to really dig into the unit economics of the distribution. And if you were to look at a lot of the products that these communities need, and you actually plan out what that distribution cost is, then it's quite accessible to create easy business models, easy pilots that kind of break through a lot of the slow action to serve stores, and just get them the products they need at affordable price points and great margins, and just create the impact in real time. A lot of these stores are struggling with COVID, They don't need necessarily grant programs a year and a half from now. They need people coming in right now with kind of, like I said, affordable products, affordable price points, and interventions that can help them in real time. So just making it as tactical and short-term as possible would help.
Awesome. Well, that's a good point for us to leave it at, Oliver. I want to thank you again for sharing all of this with us today. To anyone who's watching, please make sure if you have any thoughts, questions, share them in the comments below. And of course, as always, we can't let a video end without encouraging you to like and subscribe if you like what you saw, so you can receive updates on future episodes. So Oliver, again, thank you so much for your time. Really appreciate it.
Thanks a lot.